want you guys to do is open up to the possibility you could do this as a group, okay? So some groups that I remember from Work and Worth did it as they would ask, let's say, Susie talked about, like, I want to know more information about my dog. She just said that. Someone said that as an example. And the group would tune into their inner voices and share anything that came from their inner voices for Susie's dog. Okay, that's an example. Other ones did like asked a question, someone would ask a question, and then each person would listen into their inner voice for a word or a phrase, and sometimes they wrote them down, it almost became like a poem. Someone else asked something about her journey, and she ended up uncovering the reason she had a tattoo she didn't understand. It came through in this group. This is magical, guys. So I want you to take this seriously. Like, don't chit-chat. Like, get into whatever flows for your group. Like, don't, no, find what works, okay? Or ask someone's inner voice how to get started. Like, use this to the fullest, because I want to hear what unfolds for you guys. This is the biggest group, obviously, I've ever worked with in terms of having in one space. I want your groups to go together, and whatever unfolds, you could take turns, do it round robin. You could just listen and just say a word or phrase. Someone could document the group's experiences. Someone could ask about a situation they have. You guys figure out what works authentically for your group, but try not to take too long to get there, because we don't have a ton of time once you're in that process. So I want to give you as much time together as possible. And if you feel like it, of course, like, get each other's names and emails and Skype about it if you want to do it in the future or whatever. But give this a shot in whatever free-form way works for you. I gave you a few launching points, but don't feel tied up with anything. I just hope that you get into your inner voices as the group quickly so you can get as much out of it. Sound good? Episode 4?
Take one.
Take one. We have a TV show. That makes it official, I think. All right, doesn't matter where it's airing, it's that thing. That's what makes it real. Okay, so I want to hear how'd it go. Share. Who wants to start? I'd love to hear how the group work went.
I'm Ariel, and I've been doing this work for a while. And
I'm Heidi, and I'm a total noob to this. I listened to one podcast of Jess's in the car on the way here with my friend Megan, who's been involved for a long time. So a lot of this is super new to me, and so I was asking these two wise women a lot of their insights.
so the questions that we came up with, how do you know something is meant to be? And I've never had the questions directed before, but I always have a knowing presence, so I felt the knowing like right here, and I could feel the words, and I could like feel the fluttering. So it was really cool to have it like done. So how do you know something is meant to be? Surrender. What is non-physical? Souls, and all that is. Is everything meant to be because there's a higher power, or because you decide it's okay? Stillness. And how do you know when it's the right time to act? Surrender until you have the feeling.
Beautiful. The mind has very little to do with all that, right? And it's taking up most of our awareness, time, and attention and energy. See why it's scared? It's like running out of a job. But it does get to act. It does get to buy the plane ticket when it's time to buy the plane ticket. But then even then, when it's time to buy the plane ticket, for me, I'm looking at weird aligned numbers or, like certain like little cues that indicate, oh, this one, because if it's the same flight time, some things can become flexible. So then you're like, well, which one of these flights to buy? That I just like, even then I just kick it up to down to the inner voice and just use other cues. So it's very interesting when you get down to it and you really boil it down. And then even sometimes the stuff, it's like, well, then the mind gets to drive. But then that becomes subconscious and you don't even have to consciously drive. It's very interesting when you boil down to the nitty gritty. It's usually, it knows how to type it, that's subconscious too. Mm-hmm. If it's choosing what the email says, that sometimes can become the ego versus the inner voice writing.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting as you really boil it down, like when is it time to act, or what is the action based on?
Because I do the work, but when I do it, I usually write. And then when I write, it's like long and pages, but having the question directed towards me, I was just getting one word, 2 words at a time.
Are you finding it was just as powerful with one versus the whole paragraph?
Yes.
Yeah, wisdom versus information. Information, stapler, wisdom, scissors, different. They cuts through the crap. Literally cuts through, just says what's needed in that moment. Beautiful, thank you.
Just trying to.
Thank you.
I was in group 6 with Kat, Madison, my wife Sarah, Caitlin, and Lindsay. Thank you, ladies, for letting the newbie join. And so what I noticed.
You're 36 episodes in. She's only one.
Yeah. So from doing the work, though, so practicing the work, and what I noticed was, I'm a movie reference guy, was Planet of the Apes, where the ape asked for permission. And what we noticed in all of our questions was that there was a rhyme and a rhythm to what the other inner voices answered compared to how our inner voice answered. That it wasn't, some of them were identical, and most of them were very similar. So in some ways, I looked at it as that we're looking for permission to do this when we actually know already inside what the right answer is.
That's beautiful. And one of the things I want to just, what you just said, just also to build upon, one of the things you'll notice, especially maybe if anyone else, give me a response if you notice this too. The mind asks, you know why I'm so good at that? Because I've done it for 10 years to myself, and I've done it for a lot of other people. Do you know what's interesting? It's the same damn answers, and it's the same damn questions. It's just like, pick the chew toy. Are we talking about a guy? Are we talking about a relationship or a work thing? Are we talking about a boss? Are we talking a mom? It's the questions the mind has, not that different person to person, and the inner voice answers aren't that different person to person. I've yet to find an inner voice that says they don't always exist, or that they're not always loved, safe, and okay. I always like to start with those because for the person it anchors them in, so they're starting to hear answers, and I can get a sense that they're actually hearing, because if their mind doesn't think they're okay or safe, then I know, all right, we've got some interference here. We're just cells realizing we're part of a body. Does that make sense? Like, this we think is so individuated. Like, this is the only one that exists. And it's like, it's had certain experiences, but like the emotional keyboard it's playing is the same. And it's like saying our heart is so unique compared to others. Yes, there's deviations. Yes, there's, abnormalities to some cells of the human body or the hearts in different bodies, but the functions are rather similar. So we're finding the commonalities within our individuality that the egoic mind perceives. It's really interesting, and as we let go of those barriers the mind creates around our individuality and personality and the mind that will die in 80 to 100 years, we start to see the commonalities and just the love resurfacing and like the boundaries fade. And I don't know what that looks like for a species because we haven't yet got there where it's fully shared by a larger portion of the population, but what I believe is possible is that groups like this that are doing it wherever they are, because you guys are not up in the Himalayas. Is anyone living in the Himalayas right now? No. That this is coming to become the postman and the social worker and the teacher and the lawyer and the meteorologist. This isn't just the sage up in the mountains or the woman living with the cows. We've got it I'm in Detroit. Like I don't see nature. I cross a highway to go to WeWork every day now. But it's still there. And it's interesting as we bring this to the places we're at, we are lighting up that potential of possibility, like we talked with Savannah in the other show, for others around us. All right, let's hear the next person.
Hi, I'm Megan, and this is the rest of my team, 19 here. And so this is the first time that I had done some of the inner voice work with someone actually asking me questions instead of me trying to just grind through and ask myself questions. And so Alex, who is our little spirit guide here, asked several of us lots of really great questions. And so it was really helpful. One of the things I thought was really helpful for me was she was like, all right, what's your one first question? Because I kind of gave her this rambling paragraph of my concerns. So that was a really helpful place for me to start. And then as we went along, she was, kind of guiding me through, and we really just got down to like, okay, what's really just the next step? Like, what do I need to do now? And I felt like that really brought a lot of clarity for me. So, yeah, thank you.
I'm Jen, and this is my team, 21. And so I wanted to just share a little bit about the process, because I think like before we broke out, it was like you could do this in a few different ways. And so at least the way that kind of flowed when I did it was like I had my question, and then we went around the room, and like everyone kind of shared what their inner voice said, but there was one person that like shared something that was different. And then I kind of was like, okay, why don't we just focus on what you're saying, kind of almost follow that trail a little bit. But after we did that, it was almost like it kind of opened up this space for other people to just chime in. So at one point it was kind of, I don't remember if my eyes were closed or not, but it was the kind of thing where it was like other people just following along like a story, almost like a game of telephone, but it didn't start that way. And so it was just interesting to watch that like group dynamic of it like shift around.
Beautiful. That's actually what the inspiration for this whole thing said, that you guys would build sentences, you guys would start to create a communal connection to what was coming through. So that's awesome that you guys naturally fell into that.
I just want to share one other thing that happened that was really cool. So one of the questions someone in our group asked was they were having like health problems, and they asked, how can I heal my body? And then one of the answers somebody heard was eat apples. And we were just like kind of laughing about
That's what I
that.
got. I've gotten apples before.
So yeah, we heard eat apples. And then once she kind of told us more about like some of her health problems, one of them was acid reflux. And then someone else in the group was like, apples actually help acid reflux. And so it was just like such a funny coincidence, but not a coincidence, because the inner voice it doesn't usually give tactile specific things, but in that instance it did. And that was just really cool.
I know. I did that finally after years of worrying about my skin, and I heard eat more fruit, apples and pears, and then I said, should I put any other products on? Now that was a real stretch after 10 years. I was like, is it gonna tell me to go to the Sephora? Like, what's it gonna do? Like, go get Proactive or something. I don't know. I was like, does it have a brand preference? I don't know what's gonna say. And it said vinegar, and I was like, well, that's weird. Until months later, one of you lovely people in the audience sent me the medical medium, and I watched him talk about how great apple cider vinegar is as a toner for skin. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm getting like the lightweight version of medical medium's information from my inner voice before I know he exists.
Well, before you mentioned that on your podcast, I had been following the medical medium to heal a lot of my issues. And like, because of that, it was that I wasn't the apple person, but because of that, it evolved into this conversation about that being a thing that was also on your podcast. But no, I don't think anyone else realized that that was something that they had listened to before. I was like, no, but this makes sense. And like, these were all the reasons. It's like very synchronistic in terms of like having a conversation about it before we moved on to the next person.
Synchronicity is something that as you guys start to do this, and as you start to tap into this, and you start to listen on the day-to-day decisions with where to go, who to meet, what to say, what to do, where to be, all those things, the synchronicity increases as you tap into here. Because it's got a rhythm and pace that is perfectly crescendoed together to note to make a beautiful song for us. It's just when this thing is redirecting the GPS at a million other miles and directions because of its pro and con list versus the knowing, that we get out of sync with that synchronicity. Synchronicity, there we go. An example of synchronicity. This sync, to be in sync with this versus to be in the mental maze of this. When you get in sync, you see the synchronicities. So just watch that in your life. It's something that you might notice works out truly. Like, for example, I'm going to Kenya tomorrow. That flowed a few days ago. And I have a flight out of here tonight or tomorrow morning. And it's going to be I was going to be at home for like 2 hours and switch suitcases and go back. But we don't know what the snow situation. Who's sitting in the front row? 2 girls from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm talking to them. They're like, yeah, we're heading back tonight. So I'm going to go back tonight instead of actually pushing my luck on the tomorrow flight. Synchronicity. It syncs up. I brought my luggage too. For some reason I was at the Ace Hotel, I was like, I'm not coming back here. But I had no logical reason to know that, and I was surrendered to coming back. So I wasn't against going back. But I had this feeling there was a preference. It was a preference, not an attachment. And if you guys can notice that too, let me just share that for the mind. So there's nothing wrong with the mind having a preference. It's experiencing the life, and it would prefer to have a life without physical pain than one with physical pain. We're gonna have a preference. But when it has the attachment to the thing, if I was attached to this whole stress story around the snow or whatever, that may have made it so that I might not have talked to those girls. Not deliberately or not in any way. Maybe I would have, or maybe I wouldn't have realized it may not have synced up that way. But I didn't block the desire because I didn't have an attachment. I trusted that I was going to get home fine. Didn't know exactly which way that would work, but I knew the inner voice that kept saying I'm going to love Kenya, so I had a feeling that I'm going to get to Kenya somehow. Which way I get home, I'm not sure. But there was this kind of openness to, I don't have to come back to the hotel. I'll bring everything just in case. And then here I am hitching a ride. So notice, and you can ask yourself, is my mind attached to its outcome or is it a preference? And a preference doesn't mean that you're going to emote super negatively if it doesn't work out. You're like still surrendered to the other outcomes. You're still open to all possibilities, even though one kind of feels like it would be the ideal one. The emotion won't go like ruined if it doesn't get it. Does that make sense? So then just have compassion when it gets attached to, and it's that chew toy and it's like that mind is like chewed the whole stuffing out of the toy, right? And it's like, well, that toy is now busted. Like, that's okay too. But the preference for that toy sometimes leads a little smoother with more options and more possibilities and can get you to the synchronicity quicker. Make sense? Okay. All right, next person.
It's actually following up on the synchronicity that both of our questions for our inner voices, it was actually not the inner voice talk, but the talk afterwards that I had a question related to career and purpose, and she had a question related to family and personal life, and these two lovely ladies actually are the end result of where we're at right now. And I thought that was beautiful. It was just like kind of how like what all brought us together. We for some reason only ended up having 4 people in our group, and each of these matches just matched so perfectly. And so we flowed.
How did it feel to see people living the lives you wanted?
Easy. She said it was the best thing that happened to her. She said that she was here, at the same place I am a year ago, and how crazy and easy it was.
Because you were following your inner voices? Beautiful. Or not, maybe not.
They make it seem how it's possible.
It's nice to know that, right? Yeah. The mind sometimes wants to laser focus on only one possibility, get super attached to that outcome, and it's like, that lamp can't bring me joy. It's got to come from something else that it's laser focused on. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am used to doing the intuition work on my own and have gotten really comfortable with that. But the one thing I've heard from my intuition that I just haven't been able to explain, and I tried digging in but haven't really gotten much of an explanation, is I kept hearing harmonize and sing together. And I am not musically talented whatsoever. This is not like a thing that I do on the side at all, ever, except when it's reggaeton. But actually at last night's happy hour, I met someone right over there, and she was talking about singing, and I just stopped and I just felt compelled to tell her, like, this might be for you. This thing that I've heard might be a message for you. And so I'm just excited by the possibility that I could be hearing things that might be meant for other people. But I also shared it with our awesome group 16. And so I think it resonated a little bit with our group in terms of chanting and in terms of co-collaborating. So that was my takeaway.
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Jen, and we're in the group of Jens. I think we have 3 Jens in our group. So really awesome. And back to the point on synchronicity, this was something that we saw a lot. The questions that we had were kind of around work a little bit, and then also that desire to help, right? But then once we got into that helping space, that attraction of a lot of really needy people and not enjoying that so much. So it was really awesome to hear from that inner voice, to really be in that connected, aligned space and to really shine from that space versus trying to come down and really fix people, because that's where it just seems so heavy and the mind would get so like, I really don't like this. So that was a big cognition. And then the other thing that was really powerful, one of the Jens in our group, it was her first time doing any of the work, and we just asked one question, and you could just feel the resonance of the energy. She was just like, oh. And there's just something so magical when somebody first really recognizes that it is within, always available. So, yeah.
Yeah, these, like, you guys aren't planted experts that I've secretly put in the studio audience, right? This is just a group of people that are interested and drawn to it, right? You don't have to go shake this out of your Uber driver if they don't want to do it, but this is available. It just takes that ability and willingness to listen with an open mind and a quietness to breathe out, breathe out, breathe out when the mind's thinking.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be more than a word. And sometimes you got to poke around other questions that aren't the big boulders and blocks to kind of get in a little bit more of a gentle way. But it's there. The answers are within. And instead of Socrates doing the Socratic method with the students asking him, like, it was reversed. You guys are the Socrates. You guys are the ones answering the questions.
So powerful, so profound.
Thank
you for doing what you do.
It's really easy. I'm just asking questions that I know minds have.
It's awesome.
Hi, my name is Amelia. We're in group 1. I just wanted to make a comment about, so my issue is around career, and so we all kind of talk to our inner voices to help me with that, and it's just amazing how connected all of our inner voices are, and a lot of things that like have come up for me, but I didn't necessarily say in the group, they brought up and said some of the same words that have come up to like for me before, and it's just amazing how like connected we all are. And I've only ever done it with myself in like a stressful situation, so I'm kind of a newbie at it as well. But it's really cool to see how we're all connected in that way.
Yes, and we talked about just some different aspects of our lives, and one thing is my child, who's very important to me. She's dealing with body image issues and self-esteem at this age. And actually, you are our sister, Jess, and she listens to you with me. And she actually utilized your points in a conference we had, a parent-teacher conference, where she had to facilitate the conference and lead it. And she was very nervous, and she said, I'm just gonna flow with intention. I'm just gonna let this unfold. And I was like floored. I'm like, what? It like really shocked me. And it just kind of goes back to Savannah, and you were saying about just being present and doing you and living authentically and just being available. And my 11-year-old, she sees that. And my intention is just for love for her and to be available. And these guys, these are my sisters too. They help me to, tap into that even deeper. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. It was weird because I already felt emotion before you even said what was going to come. For some reason, I was like preemptively feeling. She's channeling herself. That's what I'm doing with you. That's why it's so easy. This is the most easy thing in the world. I'm just letting it come through, and that's what she did. She's not letting her mind get in the way. And somehow she knew at 11 to do that. How beautiful. Thank you guys so much. This has been an amazing experience to hear you guys. Now you guys know firsthand, and anyone watching can see, oh my gosh, I can do this with my friends. I can do this with my partner. I can do this with my family. I can do this with a group of friends. There's so many possibilities within this. Just keep playing and practicing and working with one another or working with other people you think would be open to this. There are no ends to the possibilities and outcomes that are going to come from this, and it can only amplify and help each other to continue to look inward instead of outward as you have this community and connection with one another. So this has been a huge honor for me, and I just love that as a way of ending and sharing that it doesn't need to be the mind that controls the reality of your life, that it can be a part of your life. Like, I love the comment someone said earlier in the day in one of our other episodes about the fact that the mind is a part of, it's not enough because it's only an aspect of who we are. It is not the complete who we are. And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at it in a way that allows it to feel that feeling with an understanding there's nothing wrong with it for feeling that feeling, and there's not a lack for the fact that it's feeling that feeling. It's just recognizing its own aspect in a greater way of the whole, but so far it's just been kind of unclear of what the other parts of the whole are. And today we're weaving it all together and integrating that. And we're learning, what does that look like? How do I live that way? How do I do it when I have 2 kids that are screaming, or when I have a baby on the way, or my career feels like it's stuck? We're learning how to integrate the whole together. Thank you so much for doing this with me today. Did you have a realization while watching? We want to hear about it. please send us a message at realizations@jesslively.com. May something wonderful happen to you today.